Okay, so today what we're going to be looking at is production context and how time era has influenced the world of cinema. More specifically, the 1980s and post 9/11. The 1980s, this was when a lot of well-known films you've probably heard of came out, like Back to the Future, Die Hard, Terminator 2, The Breakfast Club, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was having a lot of tropes, the first which is kind of this over-the-top action hero type main character, always portrayed by a man. Like we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. This was when they were at their peak. These real bodybuilder type action hero characters who were very independent and more made out to be these massive machines than relatable characters. They also portrayed women less like characters, more like objects and goals for the man. Like for instance, they would be always in need of saving, and a villain who more often than not had like a gangster-esque type to them, and usually ended up being either British or they wanted like a physical object or goal. They were like world domination or money. Post 9/11, films dropped these sort of over-the-top action hero style characters for like more everyday style action heroes. This was influenced a little bit by John McClane from the first Die Hard film, but it was only now that it really started getting into it. And women became far less objectified, more like independent characters who could do stuff for more than sex appeal for the male audience. And the villains adopted more like a terrorist style etiquette. They weren't always after a physical object, they were more trying to prove something to the main character or the rest of the world, and they were doing this through like blowing up buildings, causing riots and stuff that is more in line with terrorists than what supervillains would mainly do. Now for this, I've decided we're going to take a look at two different films from two different time sets. So the first two are going to be 1989's Batman and 2008's The Dark Knight, and 1980's Superman 2 and 2002's Spider-Man. 1989 and The Dark Knight are key examples of how much cinema has changed, especially with representations of masculinity. So in Batman 89, Batman is viewed as this big, muscular, insanely strong man who doesn't need any assistance, and throughout the entire film we never see him show any signs of physical or emotional weakness around the company of others. He's completely able to take on people twice his size, come out without a scratch on him, and send them flying in a single punch. The Dark Knight shows him a little bit differently. I mean, yes, we still get to see Batman doing all these amazing things like we can only dream of, like dropping on top of cars or bending a gun with his bare hand. It also makes a point of reminding us he's still human. There's one scene in particular where Bruce is getting dressed after a night out on patrol, and we can see his back is covered in scars, cuts and bruises from his various missions as the Dark Knight, and he's struggling to put his shirt on. It's not just the physical weaknesses of Bruce Wayne we see, we also get to see the emotional one. For instance, after the death of the love interest of the film and his childhood friend, Rachel Dawes, we see Bruce grieving in front of Alfred. The Batman 89 Batman would have never been caught doing this. However, the post 9/11 Batman gets away with this due to how views on masculinity has changed. Superman 2 and Spider-Man are very much the same story. Superman 2, Superman is quite literally the man who has everything. His superpower is being the ultimate 80s action hero, because all his powers are what every 80s action hero is made out to be. This invincible, strong man who can literally get shot at point blank and the bullets just ricochet off of him. I mean, apart from kryptonite, Superman has no real weaknesses. On the other hand, we've got Spider-Man. Peter Parker is quite literally the most relatable character we could get in cinema. He's a nerdy high school loner who doesn't really have any friends, and he's just trying to go around real day-to-day tasks, and he doesn't just get to throw on his suit and call himself a hero. He has to go through various trials such as grief, pain, learning about responsibility and life's lessons in order to earned that right. And it is shown to be this unbreakable character who doesn't have anything in his way, yet throughout the entire film we see Peter struggling with both his responsibilities at school, caring for his aunt who is also grieving the loss of his Uncle Ben, and his responsibilities as Spider-Man. Due to this fact, Superman is just another 80s action hero, yet it instantly makes Peter relatable to the audience. Political circumstances have also affected it, especially with how the villains are portrayed. For instance, Batman 89 and Superman, in the cases of General Zod and the Joker. Joker in 89, he's very much that gangster style. Like, before he became the Joker, Jack Napier was an organized crime man who was only obsessed with getting his hands on money. That's all he cared about. After becoming the Joker, he still maintained that gangster-esque style personality. General Zod is also he's your typical evil overlord type character who's only concerned about getting rid of Superman and taking it over the planet, and his goal is world domination, a trope seen in many 80s action villains. However, on the post 9/11 villains, in the case of the Dark Knight's Joker and the Green Goblin, are a bit different. Unlike his counterpart from the 80s, the 2008 Joker is very much a terrorist. His goal is to push Gotham into chaos. He wants to cause anarchy, chaos, just spread it all over the city. He does this by causing traffic collisions, car explosions. He's essentially an agent of chaos. He doesn't care about a goal or money. In fact, there's even a scene where he's seen burning a pile of money to almost spit in the face of the previous Joker from the 80s. He just wants to literally see the world burn before him. He doesn't have any physical goal. Green Goblin in Spider-Man is very much the same. He goes around on a flying glider shooting bombs at people, which, considering this film was made just after 9/11 happened, is a little bit risky. And he's not concerned about getting money or power. His entire purpose is to destroy everything both Peter Parker and Spider-Man stand for, by any means necessary, in hurting anyone who gets in the way. He's exploding buildings, using the technology to his advantage, and he's causing a lot of terrorist acts while doing so.